Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Rolene Marks. This is the Israel Brief, your one-stop shop for those top stories making the headlines in Israel every Monday to Thursday. And as always, we're brought to you courtesy of Lay of the Land. So before we head into a much-needed weekend, let's take a look at the top stories. Israel's Ministry of Foreign Affairs has appealed to the Brazilian authorities not to allow an Iranian ship to dock in their harbors. The ship, believed to be manned by members of the IRGC, that's the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, is docking in a Brazilian port. In a letter to the Brazilian Foreign Office, Israel's Ministry of Foreign Affairs said that Brazil should not grant rights to a country that commits human rights abuses like Iran. The message went on to state that Iran is a pariah state that is the world's largest sponsor of state terror, and also that Iran is responsible for maritime attacks on other ships. The letter went on to say that Brazil should follow the example of Japan, the US, the EU, Canada, and various other countries, including Australia, in singling out the IRGC as a terror entity. Yesterday, protests in Tel Aviv really got out of hand. Some of the news footage is disturbing. Now, I just want to reiterate that these protests were violent only in a small concentration of Tel Aviv. This was not the experience of the rest of the country. However, Prime Minister Netanyahu addressed a press conference last night stating that he will not allow violence in Huwara, referring to the riots that took place on Sunday night committed by vigilante settlers, and he will not allow violence in Tel Aviv. Some of the media said that the Prime Minister erroneously compared the two, and today he downplayed his statement, saying that what he meant was he will not allow for any citizens or civilians to take justice or to take matters into their own hands and use violence. Meanwhile, Sarah Netanyahu, the Prime Minister's wife, had to be evacuated from a hair salon yesterday as protesters surrounded the hairdresser. She managed to leave unhurt. President Herzog, addressing a graduation ceremony of naval cadets yesterday, said that he hears the cries of anxiety and pain, and that the situation right now is extremely worrying. However, he will not allow Israel to pass the point of no return. Yesterday, the head of the National Unity Party and member of the opposition, Benny Gantz, appealed to Netanyahu to go to negotiations before this turns into a civil war, and the Prime Minister's response was that his office is open. So let's hope that cool heads will prevail soon, and that we do have some kind of general consensus or inclusionary consensus before any overhauls are implemented. The U.S. State Department has condemned Bezalel Smotrich, the finance minister's abhorrent comments that he made yesterday during a conference hosted by Marca magazine. Ned Price, the spokesperson for the U.S. State Department, called Smotrich's comments abhorrent and appealed to Prime Minister Netanyahu and officials within the government to publicly condemn what Smotrich had to say, stating that no member of the government's cabinet had made a public condemnation. Smotrich was asked why he had liked a tweet by fellow Otzma Yehudi MK Tzvika Fogel stating that he was happy that Huwara had been burnt to the ground. His tweet read, "This is what I'd like to see, Huwara burnt to the ground." Smotrich said, "Well, I believe that it should be burnt to the ground, and I believe that the state of Israel, not innocent civilians, should burn Huwara to the ground." Meanwhile, Israel's Attorney General is opening up an investigation of incitement to the tweet made by Fogel. Yesterday, the leader of the opposition, Yair Lapid, condemned Smotrich's comments, saying that they were tantamount to calling for war crimes and that Jews do not behave like this. What is interesting is that Smotrich is off to the United States to meet with various communities to talk about Israel bonds. And in our final story, we end off this week on a more positive note. Israel is ready to welcome the first Azerbaijani ambassador to the State of Israel. We welcome Ambassador Mukhtar Mohammed. Baku will be the first Shiite Muslim capital to open up their embassy in the State of Israel, and hopefully the new ambassador will present his credentials to President Herzog in the coming week. And that brings us to the end of this broadcast. It has been one of the most difficult weeks in recent history in Israel, as you can no doubt hear. I'm emotionally exhausted from it all, as are my fellow countrymen. It has been a very, very difficult week, starting off with terror attacks that claimed 3 lives. We hold the Yaniv family, the Ganeles family, in our hearts and our prayers as they sit Shiva for the losses of their sons. It's a hole that can never ever be filled. It's a pain that I don't think any of us can understand unless we have experienced it ourselves. It has also been extremely painful to see the images coming out of Huwara and Tel Aviv, and to see the divisions happening not just here in Israel but amongst diaspora communities as well. This weekend we appeal for calm, we appeal for cool heads, we appeal for rationale as we move forward in this very, very unpredictable and difficult time for the State of Israel. And we really hope for better days ahead. In the meantime, this weekend, don't forget to check out our content on our website at www.layoftheland.online. Our Facebook community is at Lottel's site. Please consider liking us, following us and sharing our content. Help get us past those Facebook censors. Our YouTube channel is at The Israel Brief. Please click on the red subscribe button, like, share and invite your friends to as well. And we're on Twitter at LayOfTheLand5. I'm Raylene Marks, wishing you all a peaceful, a safe and a healthy weekend. Shabbat Shalom, and we'll catch up with each other on Monday as I bring you your top stories.